In regards to the shooting at 01:59 hours Sunday morning, we had several members of our SCAT unit that were in the Old Town area near Douglas and Rock Island when they heard several gunshots coming from the west. Within seconds, they went over there to the 100 block of North Mead, where they found two shooting victims, one of which later died at an area hospital. He has been identified as Colby, Kolby, middle initial B-boy. Last name is Hopkins. He is 25 years of age. He died from a single gunshot wound to the head. Also found in that area was a 26-year-old victim, and three additional victims were then discovered in the area. A short time later, a sixth victim then went to an area hospital and was contacted by officers. And then about 8 hours later, we had a seventh victim that walked into an area hospital, also suffering from a gunshot wound from the incident. So we had one deceased and 6 additional victims from this incident. At this time, we do not have any suspects in custody. We have interviewed several people, but we are well aware that there were hundreds of people down in this area, many of which likely have information that would be helpful to the investigation, so we would appreciate anybody that has any information to come forward. Either call the homicide section at 268-4181 or Crime Stoppers at 267-2111. Amongst the witnesses that we know were in the area, many of them were using their cell phones to take footage of the incident, so we would be interested in seeing any of that anyone may have. So, is there any questions regarding the actual shooting?
What time did it occur again, roughly?
01:59 hours.
Do you believe only one shooter, multiple shooters? What do we believe?
At this time, it appears to be one shooter who fired multiple rounds.
Was there an argument that broke out beforehand, or?
Yes, there is some indication that this may have stemmed from an argument that was occurring in the street after the club had let out.
And so were people in those cell phones that you said, were people actually rolling some of this cell phone footage when the shooting happened?
We believe that's likely.
Have you seen some of it yet?
We have been reviewing some evidence, but we know there's additional evidence out there that we would like to see. So,
can you speak to the nature of the argument?
As far as the motive for the shooting, I don't know that. We just know that there was a couple of individuals that were arguing back and forth amongst this large crowd of people.
Do we believe that all the people who were shot or involved were people involved in this fight, or how do we understand our victims to come into this?
Well, I don't believe all of the victims were involved in the incident. We're still trying to determine if they all know each other or what their involvement is. But I can tell you that one of the individuals involved in the argument was one of the shooting victims.
Do you know if it's gang-related at this point?
There were some of the individuals involved are documented gang members, but as I said, as far as the motive for the shooting, I don't know that at this point.
It appeared all of these people were coming out of one business, or what?
Well, I don't know if everybody that was out there had come out of this club. Oftentimes, people show up around closing time and congregate in the area, but they may have not been in the club prior to it letting out.
Are you speaking of a specific club?
Yeah, it occurred out in front of the Pandora Club, I'm sorry.
Was the deceased a gang member?
No, not documented.
What's the address for the Pandora Club? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was going to ask about our suspects in terms of, do we know how he left the area? I understand, I heard rumors that a car was involved or something to that effect. Is there anything that we know about how?
We don't know his mode of travel after the shooting. Stan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was asking what the address for the Pandora Club is.
I'm sorry, I do not have the exact address. So, the 100 block of North Mead.
Are you going to release the name of the 26-year-old victim?
We did.
The deceased is Colby Hopkins, yes.
But you said there's a second one that's 26.
Well, there's 7 victims total, but we're only releasing the name of the deceased.
Just one, okay, that's what I was asking. Okay.
So we have 1 deceased and 6 others who were wounded in the shooting, but at this point are still alive.
That's correct.
Any of them still in critical condition, to your knowledge?
All of them are hospitalized, but they're in stable condition and expected to recover.
Is this all one gun or an exchange of gunfire between
No,
several people?
at this point in time, we only believe 1 gun was involved.
Forgive me, you said all were still in the hospital, I understand some were treated and released.
Well, as of my last update, they were all still in the hospital, but some could have been released by now.
Any more questions or reference to the shooting in particular? I think the chief wants to make a quick statement.
In terms of just what happens now with the evidence you've collected and things like that, what you'll be doing with what you have?
Well, we'll continue to go through any footage that we've recovered from the area, and we'll continue to interview witnesses that are developed during that time. Like I said, originally we only had just a handful of people that stuck around to speak with the police, and we know there were hundreds down there. And we've done numerous interviews, and most of those witnesses we had to track down ourselves. So, like I said, if we know there's more witnesses out there, and we would appreciate their help in coming forward and helping in the investigation.
Quick question. I know that there were security cameras that have been placed in the Old Town area. Was this area covered by those cameras?
Well, like I said, we're still reviewing footage from the area. So where that came from, and at this point, I'm not going to release that. So,
Because it did go several blocks, because some of the victims like ran then, because I,
yeah, yes, 3 of the victims were found a block to the west, between Rock Island and Mosley.
That's where they just.
I'm sorry,
collapsed
to
or
the
something?
east, to the east, between Rock Island and Mosley.
They just collapsed there, or they ran to that?
Well,
location, or-
they were running from the area of the gunshots, yes. So,
Okay,
all right.
chief.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to make a few comments in regards to the unfortunate situation that happened in the 100 block of North Mead. First of all, our thoughts and our concerns are with the victims and their families. For those who lost loved ones, those that were injured, I can tell you that the WPD is dedicated to bringing the culprit or culprits to justice in regards to this unfortunate situation. From the standpoint of my perspective as the chief of police, one thing really stands out, that the fact that this was all about personal responsibility. And what I mean by that is this act of violence was done by a cowardly person that made the decision to fire a gun in a crowd of hundreds of people that were down having a good time on a Saturday night. There was nothing to indicate that this individual was provoked, but rather the fact that they just pulled out a gun and fired numerous shots that wound up injuring 6 people as well as killing one individual. As Lieutenant Reynolds already talked about, we believe that there's a lot of people down there with their cell phones that's taken a lot of video. It's incumbent upon them to help us to be part of solving this case, and we ask them to contact us with that video that they have, because like I said, based on what we've been able to see so far, we could see that people had their cameras out filming the arguments, filming what was going on, and so they could be key to being able to identify the person that actually did the shooting. I can tell you that we as an organization are committed to the continued safety of Old Town from the standpoint of resources. Prior to the shooting, we had about 11 officers that were in the general area. The officers were just to the east of 100 North Mead when the shots came rung out. They heard the shots. They moved in the area. They located the first 2 victims lying on the street there in the 100 block of North Mead. And so there again, like I said, we're continuing to do that. We're continuing to work with the Old Town Neighborhood Association to make sure that any type of adjustments that we make in our security plans, that they're involved in those adjustments. When you look at the plans that we make, they're fluid. They're not etched in stone. We're constantly assessing and evaluating and making necessary adjustments, and that's what we'll do with this situation here. But there again, we had 11 officers that were in that area prior to the shooting, and so that's where we are from that standpoint. One of the things that's important to keep in mind, that this is a community that takes a lot of pride in safety and the well-being. It's incumbent upon us as citizens to make sure that we're working with law enforcement, because we're going to need the citizens' help as far as solving this case. As Lieutenant Reynolds already talked about, any information is important to us. And so don't think that what you have is insignificant, because in our world, it's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. We need every piece of that puzzle to get to where we want to get to, which is basically hold these individuals accountable that committed this senseless act. I can't help but continue to emphasize the fact that we'll continue to provide the level of safety in Old Town that we do anywhere else in this community. We'll continue to reassess our plans that we currently have in place to make adjustments to address those concerns that we've been able to identify that we need to do. And so with that, I'm going to open it up for questions that you may have of me.
Chief, I think obviously Doc Howard's closed a few months ago, a year ago, however long ago it was, and I think everybody was kind of hoping that these things wouldn't happen again. But since that business closed, but has there been a tracking of the crime numbers since Doc Howard's closed, and if so, what has that showed?
Well, one of the things that we try to do, and I've asked for this morning, however, both of our crime analysts are out of the office today, is to look at, since we've implemented some proactive changes, the city council about a year ago created a new law and ordinance that has been somewhat effective for us thus far. The fact that we're constantly looking at additional resources. How have all of those changes had an impact over the last year? And hopefully we'll be able to get those numbers within the next day or two. I think one of our analysts is due back today or later this afternoon, so we'll be able to compare. But that's one of the things that's going to be important for us to see. Are those changes being effective thus far?
You said that there were 11 officers in the area Saturday night. Is that normal, or do you usually have it in the
Normally on what we try to do on Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays is try to make sure we increase the number of officers as part of our efforts to be proactive, to be visible, because when you look at that overall area, we want to try to have as many officers down there to try to deter things from happening. But unfortunately, when you look at the incident that happened Sunday morning, it was one of those unfortunate situations that the officers were to the west of where that incident happened, and thereby they weren't visible over close to Douglas and Mead.
Is there anything you know of, Chief, that the police department can do to try and stem this violence, other than what you're already doing now?
Well, it's a community effort. I mean, we have to continue to work together as a community, because think about it, 11 officers working prior to the shooting, and still the person made the decision to go down there and to inflict violence and to kill somebody. I mean, that's a concern. That tells me that that person has no qualms of committing that act, and they did it. So no matter how many officers, it still comes down to personal responsibility. And that's why it's important for citizens to be able to come forward and help us to identify this person that pulled out a gun and discharge and fire that weapon into a large crowd. You're talking hundreds of people. We're fortunate that we didn't have more people injured based on the fact that this person was using a semi-automatic weapon.
Chief, can you also talk about, I know there was some talk over town that Old Town isn't safe anymore, or this is an issue, but I also want to address the time of the hour, because we're talking about a closing time when there's some different things happening. People are coming out, they've been drinking all night. Can you just talk about that particular time of night in that area?
Well, without constantly repeating what I'm about to say, it comes down to personal responsibility. The fact that if people are consuming alcohol, get in an argument, somebody needs to intercede and get them out of there, because we cannot put an officer in every street corner. And so we need the friends of people that they realize are intoxicated, getting in an argument, get them out of there. Get them home, get them in the car, get them away from whatever's causing that problem.
I did want to clarify something. You said right when you started that there was no indication that this man was provoked, but Lieutenant Reynolds did say that there was an argument beforehand. Can you clarify? Or
When I say provoked, there was no indication that there was any other weapons from the standpoint of the people that were arguing. I mean, we're aware of one weapon at this point in time. And there again, that's why we need additional people to come forward to give us whatever information they have as far as any kind of video. But as far as our interviews thus far, there's no mention of anybody having a weapon down there. Yes, they're arguing back and forth, some small skirmishes, but there was no weapons indicated other than the person that fired the shot that killed one person and injured 6 others.
One more question?
No, I'll take advantage. I mean, I think we've gone through a year, a lot has happened. Can you also just, again, re-emphasize how much has happened since last year when we saw a lot more incidents down there? Goodness, I'm down there a lot and I see a lot of police presence, there's more cameras. It just seems like a lot has been done, and it's unfortunate that this happened again when so much has happened to make it a better environment.
Well, there again, I go back to my comments earlier. I mean, we've implemented a lot of different changes over the last year, working with the city council, working with the Old Town Association to change, to make sure the environment is safe, because everybody wants a safe environment. And even when you look over the last year, I would sense that we've seen some improvements other than what happened over the weekend. I mean, we haven't had the number of shots that we had in August and September of 2012. Those are not, you haven't had those kind of leading stories with the media. That's an indication. So, like I said, we've done a lot of positive things collectively as a community, as the elected bodies, and we've seen some of those improvements. And we can't give up. We have to continue to stay focused on those positive things that we've implemented, and maybe make some tweaks here or there as far as what we were able to determine. Okay.
Chief, do you want to comment about calling 911 and Crime Stoppers? Just to reiterate.
I just want to reiterate to the citizens, if anyone has any information, either call 911 or else call Crime Stoppers at 267-2111. Crime Stoppers at 267-2111, because the keys is going to be our citizens stepping forward and giving us the pieces to this puzzle to hold this person or persons accountable for the heinous act that they inflicted in our community. So, thank you.